So if I can do that, if I can tread onto a path that is me, you absolutely can do that. So how does feeling never good enough manifest? How does it manifest in your world? Okay, so there are three reasons. There's three reasons it manifests, and those are the three reasons that we're going to have a look at in this particular session. Okay, number one is survivors. Obviously, I'm going to explain what each of these are in this session. Number two is adult child. And number three is defensive patterns. These are the three reasons, in my opinion, as to why feeling never good enough actually exists. So in this session, we are going to look at these three reasons that it shows in your life, feeling never good enough, and the ways to tackle it so you finally feel actually you're enough, that you're enough exactly who you are, you're enough in the way that you feel, the way that you are as a person, the way that you are. You're just enough. It feels enough, and therefore it manifests in your external world as enough. So how does it begin? So it begins with, we're looking at the first thing, survivors. So how do survivors behave? Okay. Well, survivors are normally loyal, they're humble, they're sensitive to the feelings of others, and they're hardworking. Okay? Does that sound like you? They're also hard on themselves, but nice to everyone else. Okay? They've been through, often, survivors have been through some bad relationships that have hurt, that have really hurt. Relationships, whether those are part of their family history or romantic relationships, friendships, all those kind of things. But survivors have been through some bad relationships normally, and that those have hurt. Okay, they've left a mark. Yet they are eager to either have into their life now or appreciate the good relationships. Survivors are often, by their circumstances, forced to grow, but they may not want to. Okay, survivors may not actually want to grow. So even though they are normally loyal, humble, sensitive to the feelings of others, and hardworking, when it comes to growing, actually, they may not want to, but their circumstances have forced them to. Okay, so if you think back into your own life, if you think, maybe I'm a survivor, maybe that is something that's happened in my own life experience as to why I'm carrying this feeling never good enough, or where it surfaces from. If you think back into your own life, where you've been forced to grow when perhaps you didn't want to, and maybe you're still feeling that impact and the resentment that you don't actually want to, excuse me, but your life has forced you into that position. Perhaps, as I say, you're a survivor, you've been forced in life to grow, and sometimes that's been when you've not wanted to. Survivors in life feel an inner resentment towards themselves. Okay, why? Because for a survivor to be a survivor, they've been through hardship and out the other side. Now, they may have been out the other side. Their self-esteem, though, hasn't been out the other side. It got stuck somewhere in the middle. Okay? So where does feeling never good enough live in a survivor? Where does it live in a person who feels that they are a survivor? Well, it lives in this place, okay? Victim identity, okay? Now, you may think, I'm not victim. I don't see myself as a victim. Well, if you're carrying that you don't feel good enough, often it comes up, or it hits you at moments when you don't expect it, or it hits you right at the point of opportunity and the survivor component resonates with you, then it's going to be there somewhere, okay? So Never feeling good enough lives in a survivor in the victim identity. But what the victim identity does is it hurts, okay? It hurts in the sense that it destroys your personal power and undermines the sense of self, okay? So the victim identity, where you identify yourself as a victim, it makes you falsely identify with damage that's been done to you, okay? Or with bad things that have happened to you. It makes you identify with the damage, okay, and the bad things, rather than actually being able to move beyond them, okay? So, for example, those survivors who have lived, as an example, with a resentful or angry or emotionally abusive partner, you know, that they've lived with that as their experience, using that as an example, they will say something like, I don't like the person I became, or I don't like the person I've become as a result of sharing that space, okay? And then when you ask, well, why didn't you change that? The key phrase that they'll come down to is, well, I don't feel good enough. I don't really feel good enough to change that. And it comes from that victim identity. So the victim identity is not healed, though, okay, through reviewing checklists of behaviours that qualify you as a victim or as a survivor, okay? So in order to be a survivor, you have to have been at a certain level a victim, okay? So the victim identity, so identifying yourself within that bracket, is not healed through reviewing checklists of behaviours that qualify you as a victim or a survivor. In fact, reviewing those checklists actually affirms the victim role and justifies you and not feeling good enough. Okay, it justifies, oh, well, actually, I feel this damage, so therefore I'm not good enough to heal. I'm not good enough to move beyond seeing myself as this victim. Okay, the victim identity heals. Actually, how does it actually heal? It heals through a strong identification with your strengths, your talents, your skills, your power, and your appreciation of the self as this unique, ever-growing, competent and compassionate person. Compassionate not only for everybody else, but also for yourself. That is how this victim identity heals. It's not through checking, looking at these things and forever checking. Of course, when you first identify these things or need to, or you recognize them, you go, actually, yes, those checklists are suitable, the checklists of recognizing yourself in that space. But it doesn't mean that you are forever identifying with it. Okay? So, how do you really properly get into that space where you can heal the victim identity through strong identification with your strengths, your talents, your skills, your power, your appreciation of yourself and that ever-growing competent person? How is that accomplished? Well, it's accomplished through an emphasis on healing, growth and empowerment. Okay, not on reviewing the behaviours that qualify you as that victim, or by reading lengthy descriptions of the resentful, again using this as an example, the resentful, angry or abusive behaviour and attitudes of a person that you've been around. Okay? Because in keeping that energy alive, it's affirming that you never feel good enough. Okay? So tip number 1 to healing never feeling good enough as the survivor. This is specifically if you identify yourself as resonating with what I'm talking about as the survivor. So how do you really go about resolving this so you can find your own skills and your own talents and all of those kind of things? It means that you look to the past to heal the present. Now, a lot of the time people say, well, you shouldn't focus on the past, you should focus on the present and just stick with the present and forget about the past. Well, actually, sometimes, and especially around the energy of feeling never good enough, looking to the past to heal the present makes a massive impact. Okay, has a massive impact. So if you think into your own life, like I did, if I thought back, actually, I'd forgotten much into my early adult life that yes, I used to love spending that time in libraries, that I would absorb every piece of information I could get my hands on, that I would read books endlessly, that I was fascinated, that I wanted to engage with deeper parts of my world, deeper parts of my own imagination, all of those kind of things. I've forgotten all that as an adult. You get distracted by that. But I look to the past to heal the present, as in then I actually looked to that and think, well, actually, what is it that really engages me? What I find very interesting? What is it? And I thought about it, it was the written word. It was, for me then, that's what it was. And then I decided to do something about it, that I no longer felt that I wasn't good enough. Okay, that I wasn't good enough to write what I wanted to write. And for it to be seen as being, yeah, absolutely, it was good enough. So look to the past to heal the present. That means the history of repeating patterns that have created survivor patterns through the ages. Okay. So how do you do that? Well, look to who has identified with the victim identity through the generations. Okay, I know I've said to you most likely before, you've heard me say this about looking into past generations and these things holding the key. They hold a huge part of how you see your life now. Okay, so look into your own and identify where that victim identity came from. Okay, where did you learn? Who did you learn it from to feel never good enough? Who taught you? Who taught you to feel that you were never good enough? Okay, who taught you that? And who taught you that from the survivor perspective? Okay, look back through your life. Who in your life was the one person, the one who sticks out in your mind, who had the victim identity? Okay, who taught you how to take that on? And who taught you, and maybe he taught you very well, to never feel good enough. Okay, do that now. If you've got that pen and paper, like I said to have at the beginning, write down who through your history has taught you to survive through holding, feeling never good enough. Maybe it wasn't through your ancestral history, maybe it's been through your relationship history, but someone's taught you. Okay, write down now who's taught you. Okay, do that now. The trouble is, as you write those things down, you can only go so far from memory. You can only go so far from memory as to who those people are as part of your past. And the reason is because the survivor messages are stored in the cells of the body, okay? Stored through the generations. And the issue is, when that happens, okay, as a survivor rather than a thriver, when your system is in surviving rather than thriving, what happens is you never settle, okay? You never feel settled. You never feel comfortable. It might be that how it shows in your life is that you get itchy feet very, very quickly, that you keep needing change, that you can't settle in an environment, that you find yourself having to keep moving from that environment, or moving from your space, or feeling forever that you need to move, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, often what that is it's the survivor energy trying to push itself up to the surface so that it can move through and move into the thriver. Okay, but as that survivor energy, when it's active, you can't settle. You're always waiting for something to happen. Okay, you're always waiting for something. You may not know what on earth it is that's supposed to be happening, but you're then always waiting for something to happen, something to affirm even that you're not enough, something to go wrong, something that you're expecting to go wrong. Okay, the tricky part is you can only immediately access and change what you have a memory of. So what goes further back through the generations? What you can't probe to the surface. When you can probe it to the surface, the acknowledgement means that it releases. Okay? And when something releases, it's very hard then, it's really hard to keep the victim identity. It might be something that becomes a habit, or that you think, oh, hang on a second, shouldn't I be thinking like that? Or, oh, why has that suddenly changed? But it becomes really difficult to then keep that victim identity. Now, we haven't got time now, okay, but Module 1 of Healing Never Good Enough deals with that, okay? It deals with the pre-life influences, and believe me, we have plenty of them. So that's your ancestral emotional history and aspects of your, we'll call here, soul karma, okay? Soul karma as in those things that have been collected and that you feel have a soul influence, and that have been collected through the generations, through, let's say, the soul's memory, okay? And all of that is important because what's stored in the cells, as I found, becomes the extra deal as a survivor. It becomes the extra thing that you've got to try and figure out or work your way through. Okay, I've done loads and loads of stuff in terms of solving this survivor energy, especially when I was in that space of never feeling good enough. And that survivor energy that's passed, again, through the generations. And in my family generations, both sides, I found had plenty of survivor stuff going on. And the victim identity, loads of it, tons of it. So when you release that identity, the victim identity, becomes very hard for your system to keep it.